Hello, this is the Stories Beside channel. I release videos every day for you. Subscribe and click the bell. In one of Russia's major cities, something had been happening for a long time that angered many residents. But no one wanted to fight it, and no one knew how. Vanessa was born into an ordinary family. She had a mom and a dad, and a grandmother. They didn't live very rich, but they weren't poor either. They had just about everything they could live on. "Mommy, I want pancakes." A girl came into the kitchen on a Saturday morning. She was 5 years old at the time. "Of course, darling, we sit down at the table," her mother tells her, and she turns away from the stove. Started making the delicious, thin, open-work pancakes that the whole family loved so much. "Daddy, why isn't it coming?" the girl asked. "You know he probably has no time, but he will definitely come." The mother looked into the corridor to see what her husband is doing. It was a very close-knit family. If everyone was at home on a day off, then after breakfast, they were sure to get together and go for a walk in the park. There they had fun with their daughter, and in the evening they could come to visit their grandmother. This was also their tradition. "Mom, can you stay with Vanessa next weekend?" The woman asked her. "Yes, of course. Where are you going?" As if Grandma didn't care, but wanted to know. "You know, my high school friend invited us to her wedding, and for once we're both free and decided to go." Her daughter answered her. A friend's wedding is good, nodded her head and smiled at her grandmother. All week there had been some tension at home. Her mother was nervous, her father was late coming home from work, and Vanessa could feel it all. But she didn't say anything, because it happened so often. Saturday morning, the family had breakfast as usual. After that, they started to get ready to take the girl to her grandmother, and they had to go back and do all their chores. They had to dress up, do their hair and makeup, and go to the festivities. "Mom, when are you coming?" Vanessa turned to her. "My favorites. You will be home tomorrow," Mom told her. She gave her a hug and a kiss. After that, they left. Vanessa and her grandmother went about their business. It was fun here too, because the woman read interesting books, told various stories. In the evening, the grandmother called the girl to the kitchen. "What are we going to reap so late?" Vanessa asked. "No, do you want us to make cookies with you?" asked her grandmother with that voice. "Cookies, just like they make in the campfire." The girl was surprised. "Well, yes, in the fire we will make with you at home. Where have you seen that they make them in the fire?" The woman became curious. "When my mom, dad, and I went camping, we had a big bonfire burning. And at the end, when there were red coals left, Dad threw potatoes in there and buried them. Then it was delicious. We sat eating," Vanessa told her, and closed her eyes, remembering it all. "That's great. You want me to feed you exactly that now." Nancy took some potatoes, washed them under water, turned on the oven, and put them straight down without any pro-morning pan. "They sure wouldn't burn in there," peeked Vanessa through the glass of the oven. "No, don't worry. They'll be ready soon. You'll feel like we're camping in the woods," said Grandma. And indeed, when the potatoes were taken out of the oven, they burned in some places just like a campfire. But when it was laid out, there was a scattering of pulp, which Vanessa, just as she had then on the camping trip, poured over and gobbled up. "Well, it's delicious," she told her grandmother. "What did I tell you?" smiled the woman. After such a dense dinner, they drank tea with milk and went to bed. "Do you want me to tell you something?" Nancy asked her granddaughter. "Oh, if you can, tell me some interesting story." As the girl lay in her separate bed, the room was dark. "You know, we lived in a time when there were no communications, few cars, and no roads. That's when it was very interesting," my grandmother remembered. "Tell me how you worked in the field. Yes, the field was interesting. The whole village would gather there. We would come, and everyone knew and did their job." Grandmother paused for a long time and remembered how good it was when she was young. "And what happened later? Why do you live in the city now? I'd like to know, Vanessa." And then they wanted to build a big road through our village and started to buy houses from the locals and exchange them for city apartments. Of course, I didn't want to go for a long time, but my children talked me into it. Now I live here hard, sighed Nancy. You could hear that he didn't want to move here. I see. But some of my friends go to their grandmothers in the country for the summer. I could go to you too, the girl said. She yawned and fell silent. Nancy realized that the girl was already asleep. She too turned on her side and tried to sleep. But for some reason, the smartest woman Varia studied side by side. She didn't understand why she couldn't sleep. There was some kind of excitement in her chest, and towards morning her heart seized strongly. Vanessa could only say she had difficulty breathing. My head hurt very badly in my chest. What's wrong with you? She couldn't understand what was going on. Jumped out of bed, dial 03. She just exhaled. Vanessa dialed the number she was told. She started to ask who it was, who was sick, and what they were doing. But the girl only cried into the phone and said that she needed to come to her grandmother's house right away. The doctors asked for the address, but the girl did not know it. Then she had enough sense to go out on the platform and knock the neighbor. Why are you here so early? Open this door. Please help, Grandma is bad. I don't know. Address through tears uttered the girl. Female neighbor ran to the phone, told everything to the medics, and ran into the room to see what was going on. Nancy T was lying on her back, breathing heavily. She was not feeling well. The medics arrived quickly. They took her blood pressure, did a cardiogram, and suggested that Nancy go to the hospital. I can't leave my granddaughter alone. Oh, come on. Don't worry. She'll stay with me until her parents get here. The neighbor was worried. Nancy was taken away. Vanessa stayed in the neighbor's apartment. Grandma, what's going to die now? She asked the woman. What are you talking about? No one is going to die. She stroked her head and held her close, and it was early Sunday morning. And 4 o'clock later, they learned that a terrible tragedy had happened almost at the exact same time. Or me and Hope. Vanessa's parents were ready to go to the celebration. The woman had bought herself a beautiful dress for the occasion. The man wore a suit for once. Why don't you always dress like that? His wife asked him. They got into the car and went to the place where they were already waiting. Everything was fun and interesting. Nadia did a lot of dancing. Or was I talking to friends I hadn't seen for a long time? And in the morning, when they were going home, they started to talk them out of it. Oh, come on. We'll get away all right, said William. Why don't you stay at least until dinner? The bride asked them. No, we have a daughter waiting for us. That's why we have to go. The parents were convinced they were right. They had almost reached the city when they were overtaken by a KMAZ with a trailer. It is not known what happened, but the trailer backed sharply and hit the car in which William and Nate were traveling. The man failed to control the vehicle. They pulled to the side of the road for a long loop only to flip over a couple times and eventually crash into a pine tree. An ambulance was called immediately. William died on the way to the hospital, and Hope 2 o'clock afterward. She, without regaining consciousness, passed away. When Nancy was brought to the hospital, it was all talk. The woman heard familiar names. She felt even worse. She asked the doctors. When they named them to her, she passed out. The doctors did everything they could to get Nancy's health back on track. She was lying under IVs as her friend, neighbor Molly, along with Vanessa, came to see her. My grandmother held out her arms to her. For more when you go home. And why aren't Mommy and Daddy picking me up? She cried. She looked at Molly and gave her a look that told her to get the child out the door when she returned. The woman told her what had happened to Vanessa's parents. Jesus, how could that be? The neighbor put her hand over her mouth. I also think what will happen to the child now, how to tell her about it. The grandmother was very upset. After she was discharged, she came home, immediately put on a black handkerchief for pain. Why did you put on that ugly handkerchief? Said to her granddaughter in the kitchen. Honey, come to me. Vanessa King grandmother sat her on her lap, and began to tell her about her parents. "You see, my dear, Mommy and Daddy are gone. They have gone to heaven forever behind your shoulders. This is where Mommy here Daddy showed, and for the rest of your life they will be with you by your side to protect you." "I know that." The girl raised her eyes at her. "As you know, to you," Molly told. Her grandmother didn't understand her. "No, I dreamed about them crashing the car." Vanessa sat there, tears in her eyes. She wasn't crying. "I see." The next day they went to the cemetery. Her grandmother showed her where her parents were buried. There Vanessa had already let the tears flow. Even though she was a small child, she was still very emotional. The next 3 years, the girl lived with her grandmother. There were no problems with anyone. Only the grandmother was often sick at this point, and if she did get taken to the hospital, Vanessa would sit with Molly as usual, and Nancy knew it couldn't go on like this for much longer. And still, child services would come someday, the moment she wasn't home. And so it was. Specialists. You knew the woman had a long history of illness and absences. The child is with a neighbor, so they just came one day and took Vanessa away with them. When Nancy found out about it, her heart just couldn't take it. Now Vanessa was being raised in an orphanage. Then, as the years passed, she never said she had a bad time there. And now, when she was there, she did not argue with anyone, did nothing. The girl was only interested in studying. She dreamed of becoming a popular actress or an announcer on television, but only to be seen by everyone. Almost all of Vanessa's free time was spent in the library. She was reading different books. Also, the girl went to the theater circle, where she could recite poems and various prose very well and beautifully. At school, she studied well. Not at the tutors, not teachers. There were no bickering neither on studies nor on behavior. And here came the day of graduation. On the one hand, it was sad to say goodbye to this place, but on the other hand, realized that now she will enter the study, and her dream will be realized. Of course, the girl dreamed of the Theater Institute, but she could not get there, so she went to the journalism department. It was very interesting to study. Vanessa lived in the apartment of her parents, and therefore she did not need anything. She thought she had all the friends she needed, except for those she had been with in the orphanage. If they hadn't been very close friends there, now that they were meeting, they were socializing so close it couldn't be helped. "Hi guys, come on in," said the girl to them when they came to visit her. Vanessa loved it when they had company over. "What are we going to discuss today?" They sat in a semicircle, and every time they discussed something new. Vanessa served tea, juice, some kind of snacks, but they put it all together from the scholarship. There was one young man in the company whose name was Liam. Vanessa liked him, and today, when they were together again, she'd gotten up the courage to ask him to stay when everyone was leaving. And why was he sitting in front of her in the kitchen? Nothing. Just wanted to talk to you one-on-one. Vanessa looked at him. Liam was kind of nervous or just really worried. Vanessa started some topics, but for some reason the guy didn't support her. It made her uncomfortable. But every day they met, their relationship grew warmer and warmer. "Let's not invite anyone over tonight. Let's go out alone." Finally, Liam suggested. "Okay, I agree." She smiled back at him. They walked around, talking about many things. Then the young man hurried to the dormitory. "Why don't you have an apartment?" One day I asked him, Vanessa. "Oh, there it is, you know. Such a long story on the Marshall." "Boy, come and tell me tomorrow," she said to herself. Thought she'd found an excuse for him to come visit her again. The next day, when the vapors were over, she and Liam went to her house. She had prepared an unpretentious lunch. They ate and also sat at the table. "So, why don't you have an apartment?" "You know, there's a situation," he started to tell her. "So what's it like?" I really wanted to ask her about it. When we graduated from the orphanage, they promised to give us apartments, but it turned out weird. Some got them, and some didn't. The guy didn't really know what was going on. "Why didn't you get one?" She poured tea in a mug. "They called me in and told me there were no apartments and offered me compensation. Of course I accepted. Better a bird in the hand than a crane in the sky. Liam looked up at her. And the money? Of course, you've already spent it all, Vanessa said knowingly. Well, not everything, but I don't have enough for the apartment, I told you. I see. If you want, you can move in with me, she said, hanging sugar in a mug. She offered it to him, although she liked the offer because she liked the guy. And what would it be called? He was smiling. Liam, I like you. Vanessa lowered her eyelashes, afraid that after this confession, the guy might get scared and just run away. You know, I like you too. I was just afraid that if I told you about it, you'd eat me right away. Told her fool. The girl laughed. That's for sure. He laughed with her. Today he went to the dormitory, and for tomorrow, he promised that he would think about it. And if the answer was positive, he would pack his things and move in with her. For tomorrow, Vanessa was waiting for him near the institute, and I really wanted his answer to be positive. And Liam, I did. I'm so glad. She jumped around him as they all stood there. Come on, there's nothing to be excited about. Maybe I'll turn out to be a bad person, or a bad housekeeper, or I won't clean up after myself. Yeah, it'll be okay. I know it will. They went home and settled down. And today Vanessa decided to invite her friends over for a dinner party. I'll help, Liam volunteered. I'm sure you will, she told him. The guy and the girl hadn't met yet, but they complimented each other so much that Vanessa would start talking and Liam would realize what she meant. The guy starts to do something, and she's already there to help him with it. Listen, Liam, I want so much to become a famous editor of some magazine or an announcer on TV. Did you want to be an actress? She confessed to him one evening when they were sitting at the table. Well, wait, now they will teach you, and you will become. He told her to cheer her up. Do you know what it takes to do that? Look, I'll think of something. Let's find some interesting stories that happen on the internet. Maybe in our dormitory or just in your yard. You'll do the interview and I'll shoot the reportage. Liam said dreamily. That's a great idea. She liked what the young man was suggesting. After that, as Liam told her, they started to find out something somewhere. If there was any hot news, they went straight to it. Tell me, how do you feel about all this? Vanessa asked. The people who were involved in the story, they turned their backs on it and people left. A lot of people did. But the grannies in the courtyard weren't the least bit shy. While Liam was filming them, they were telling Vanessa about what was going on in the yard. How the sewer burst, the heating didn't work, and the janitor didn't come to work. They had all kinds of news. Vanessa and Liam in the evening when they were editing it, everyone was laughing. But it's one thing to finish. Where am I going to go with this material now? She said, referring to the great-grandmothers who told her all the do's and don'ts. Nothing. You're the one still practicing. When you have a real reportage, then you can brag. Right now, nobody needs to practice their skills. He was always optimistic about the river. When the girl was in her 3rd year, she was sent as the best student to a seminar. After it, there was a gala evening. Vanessa sat at the table, bored, as suddenly saw a man. She recognized him as a famous editor and decided to approach him. Hello. She approached him. Hello, hello. He turned to the girl. You don't know me. My name is Vanessa. I was sent from our institute as the best active student. I would like to ask you something, she told him. I'm listening. He went to a table and sat down. The girl did the same. You know, my cherished dream is to become a famous reporter or interviewer so that I can anchor the news on TV or travel. Shoot reports at this point, while she was talking very shy. That's commendable, he told her. Tell me, what does it take to do that? She looked up at him. You know, initially you need to graduate from the institute, and after that either for a diploma or just like that. You have to do something to get noticed. The best way to do that is to get off a hot report, the man advised. I hear you. She got up from the table. She walked home today in a good mood. When Liam met her, he was very surprised. Why are you so happy? You have no idea who I met today, she said to him and dragged him to her room. Vanessa couldn't stop talking. She realized she was probably boring Liam, but she couldn't stop. Well, there you see the first hint that you are destined to have your dream come true. I have no doubt that you can do what you have planned. He put his arm around her. I doubt it. Where to find a good story? And those in the news business, they're always being told what's going on where and what's going on. What about you and me? What do you mean? What? Well, you see, school's coming to an end. Maybe we'll get some kind of assignment. He told her. Well, let's hope so. And Vanessa didn't believe that any of this could happen. All the rest of the time she was just sniffing out different scoops, but nothing interesting was happening. Listen, what if you interviewed a person that everyone would like to know about, but he doesn't tell anyone anything? What do you suggest? Contact some star. The girl looked at him. You realize that would be impossible. Well, why with a star? The young man wondered. And from whom then? At our director of the orphanage. I think that she also does not tell anyone anything about herself. Oh, stop joking. I'm serious. She got offended and turned away. Oh, come on. They were already in the 4th year. They had to think of something urgently, because there was less and less time left. Liam himself had to do something, but it was not his cherished dream, because he could work as a simple worker in a small printing house or magazine. Come on, hurry up, get up. The girl from this morning. What are you, still a veteran? Even the alarm clock is still ringing. He squinted from the sun that hit the window. Well, let's go, please. She asked him and poked him in the face with some paper that it was in the table. He could not wake up. Today a popular band is coming to our town. And suddenly she was silent on the guy. Didn't know what she meant. All right. Only I don't believe anything can come of it, Liam said. He saw how agitated the girl was. Got up, washed his face, grabbed his camera, and they headed closer to the airport. There they stood in the waiting room for a couple more hours. Why did you have to get up so early? Oh, come on. She poked him in the shoulder. I was wondering why no one was here. Liam looked around. There really weren't any reporters or photographers around. Maybe he's not coming by plane for sure. I didn't think of that. That's okay. Maybe I'll get tickets to the concert. St. himself stood and already thought who was pulling his tongue. Can you do that? She did not believe the guy. That it is possible. At least I'll try. And your task, if I do it by any means, to get backstage to their dressing room. It was the only way to get any material. All right. Now the young people were faced with tasks that were unrealistic to accomplish. Liam was scrambling amongst acquaintances everywhere he turned, and finally decided to try his luck and go to the box office, even though he knew that there were definitely no tickets. Good afternoon. Do you have a couple of tickets for the concert? Young man, where did you come from? I smiled at him. The cashier from there pointed to the entrance, realizing that the woman was joking with him and there was nothing in the box office. All right, I see. She held out 2 tickets to him, which I can't believe how I thought it was so impossible to get them. He stood there dumbfounded, looking at the 2 small pieces of paper. You're the lucky one. I am. The tickets are long gone, but there were 2 young men today. They just canceled for their own reasons. He was smiling. Thank you, guys. I wanted to hug that woman, but he couldn't. And the kids are already making your soulmate happy. She knew he was taking 2 tickets for a reason. And thank you again. He went to the exit. The concert was already tonight, and there was still time. Vanessa, no, you won't believe it. He ran into the apartment. What are you yelling about? She came out to him. Look what I got. He was holding out 2 tickets to her. Where did you get them? They're definitely real. They can't be. I bought them at the box office. He kissed her on the cheek. So now the hardest part is getting backstage. She sounded like she was talking to herself. And what are you going to ask them? And what are you going to ask them? You thought about it. He got curious. Look, she was standing there looking at Liam. All right, I'll figure it out. Since the tickets were in hand, they had to pick an outfit and start packing. Vanessa thought about the young man while she sat in front of the mirror. He had promised her that he would get her what was impossible, and he had done it. He must really have some feelings for her. So you ready? Standing in the hallway, yeah. Vanessa came out to him beautiful. He took her by the waist, pulled her to him. Thank you, she punched him in the shoulder. For what? I didn't realize. For putting up with my every whim. She knew how hard it was. Because he stopped talking. I love you, she finished for him. Yes, he blushed. And you. They walked out of the apartment. Tonight was going to be an interesting evening. The young people entered the lobby of the building where the concert was to be held. It was unbelievable. Fans were shouting something. CDs with songs were being sold. The crowd was cheering and wanted to get into the hall. Vanessa looked at everything that was going on. Maybe we'll try to get backstage now, Liam suggested. Do you think that if it was possible, the groupies would still hang out here? The girl laughed. But it's worth a try. They walked past people, into the corridors, where there were some offices. And here Whispered said the guy quietly put his finger to his lips and knocked on the door. We asked not to be disturbed until the concert, it said. I'm sorry, Vanessa said as the door opened. What did you want? Her childhood idol stood in front of her. She stared at him and couldn't get a word out. Hello. Was Vanessa acting like a fool? 5 interviews saw the artist Liam with a camera. Can we at least ask 2 questions? It's for our diploma. She's such a star. Vanessa stood like a pillar of everything, her young man said. Okay, just get your girlfriend out of her stupor, the man smiled. Vanessa, let's go. Liam pushed her. Oh yes, she realized she was being ridiculous. They walked into the room where the rest of the band was, saying hello to everyone. If you're in good faith, you're welcome. We are people just like you, laughed the entertainer. Did you like our city? Vanessa asked, when the interview had already begun. It's not my first time here. I can say that I will come again. But that says it all, answered the singer. And how do you feel about your female fans? Vanessa couldn't think of anything else to say, and her head wasn't working at all. It's good. They support us. Except that we try to be away from them. Who can tear up? Laughing, the answerer. Vanessa asked 5 more questions, and then it was time for them to go on stage. Thank you very much. We in the audience turned to Liam and thanked everyone. Thank you for being adequate. And your questions are on hold too. The artist gave him a poster with the autographs of all the musicians. You have no idea what a valuable gift it is for her. The guy looked ahead, where Vanessa had already gone. She seemed to be still in shock. And then it was fun. The girl danced so hard that when they walked home, she couldn't feel her feet under her. I just can't believe it happened, Vanessa said on the way home. And it did. Walked a companion beside her. They arrived home. The poster was immediately placed on the wall in the most prominent place. The girl stood opposite and admired it. I am happy. She collapsed on the bed. It feels like you don't need anything else in this life, but everything is possible. She closed her eyes and remembered her idols again. 5th year was coming to an end, and Vanessa hadn't done anything else. What are you worried about? You have an exclusive. Not so provocative questions there, but still reassuring like a regular me guy. Okay. At least I just had an interview to do. I already have one. And with who? She put her index finger up and calmed down. Everything would be fine. The exams were excellent. The young people were even recommended where they could get a job. Liam was happy with this option. But Vanessa not so much. She decided not to settle for a while, to look for a better place. So what are you thinking? Liam asked her at home. He's been working for weeks. Look, I've been going through all the papers and you know what I found out. She was looking at him, and you could tell she was thinking about something. Of course not. He laughed. There is an official in our town. He works in the administration. A few years ago, he was a simple lawyer. Then he began to climb the career ladder. And at the moment, this man has millions of dollars in accounts. No matter how many times we try to interview him, ask him where it all comes from, he shuts down, doesn't say anything. The most important thing is that this man goes everywhere with guards, and there is no way to approach him. Vanessa said. She's been scouring the internet for any information. So much for flammable material. Liam thought, what can I do? What if I come to the administration under some guise he will check? We'll meet, and then I'll ask for options. Girl, I think he's not as stupid as most people think he is. The young man also pondered the options, but the girl still decided to try her plan. In the morning, she dressed modestly and went to the place where Michael worked. Already after she entered the main doors and was stopped by a guard, he asked her for her ID and who she was going to. When the girl said her last name, he shook his head negatively. Why didn't Vanessa understand? To him, you need to sign up a month or even 2 months in advance. Now he is busy. He made it clear to her that he wouldn't let men in. What are you doing there? The girl left the building. I realize a man with nothing to hide wouldn't do that. Vanessa returned home, waited for Liam from work, told him everything that had happened to her. Now she had one goal in mind, to get this Michael guy to talk to her. But how to do it? The girl, alas, did not know. Look and try to find out what places he goes, what he does. Maybe there is his hobby on the internet. The young man advised her. I've been looking. There's not a line. All I got is the position he holds. And that's it. Vanessa said sadly. Or maybe there is nothing, Liam speculated. Look, how can a simple administration position have so much truth? I recognized all their property, registered to his wife and son. It was clear that this man was in the girl's head. All right, then let's follow him. How do you envision it? We'll sit around the corner. And when he comes out and gets in the car, we'll run after her. Vanessa laughed. She's right. Yeah, you're right. All right, I'll think of something. Girl, I knew if she was up to something, she wouldn't quit. Not until it was finished. And that would be when Vanessa realized it wasn't interesting. In the meantime, she realized that there was some mystery here. The girl really started to visit the administration building every day. She noticed that at lunchtime, and a few times a day, Michael went to have tea or coffee in a restaurant that was not far away. But when he has visitors or perhaps meetings, he drives his car, and where only he knows. Vanessa, I've got some great news for you. How are you home, Liam? And what was that look she gave him? We were on an errand on the outskirts of town today, and I saw your Michael's car there. So I thought I'd take a look. It was a cheap coffee shop, and he was really there. She said to gesticulate with her hands. The young man is interesting. What was he doing there? Yes, and I wondered why a man with so much money in some diner. The guy calmed down a bit. Let's go tomorrow, and you can show me the place. Vanessa made some notes to herself in her diary. Okay, agreed. And don't forget to take the camera, the girl reminded him. After that, they sat down to dinner. Vanessa was silent, and Liam, I did not distract. He realized that now she was thinking over a plan. The guy left the table, went to the room, and the girl sat at the table. She was staring at one point. A mental process was going on in her head. Of course, I thought a lot yesterday, but I realize if there are guards with him, they will definitely not let us near, Vanessa was saying. But we can watch from afar so as not to arouse suspicion. That's exactly what Liam was going to do. That's what I was going to suggest. They left the apartment. The young people quickly reached the place where Michael had been yesterday. They found a comfortable place to sit where they could see everything from, and no one would notice them. Do you think he'll come today? The girl stared at the entrance. Well, I don't know, Liam shrugged. It was his day off today, and he had to sit around sucking it up. In the middle of the afternoon, people began to flock to the diner. What kind of people were they? Vanessa was amazed. She couldn't even think what a man from high society could be doing here. At some point, an expensive car pulled up to the building. The very man they were waiting for got out. "You're not going." Liam turned to her. "Take the picture." She pointed in the direction where the cafe was. "Now we'll see what happens." They watched. Michael entered the hall. The windows were so dirty that nothing could be seen through them, but already the man in the jacket could be distinguished from everyone else. Vanessa got up and went there. Only she wanted to go in. Just as the man's guard approached. "What are you?" She looked at him. "You can't go in there yet." The man told her. "Why?" "I just wanted a cup of tea." Mavis surprised face girl. "Wait a bit, and you can go in." He didn't let her in. That her well looked the girl inside and managed to notice that the man was talking to a young guy. She turned back to Liam. "I have what?" asked the man. "No," she exhaled. They realized that they had nothing to catch here today, so they decided to drive back home. All the way the girl was thinking about something. She realized that there was no way she could get to this man. She had to think of something. A chance happened to help her. "I went to work one Liam day, and I was ready to go out." "Wait, where are you going this early?" "I want to go to the orphanage. I haven't been there in a while." She often visited that institution because she liked to visit children. "Why don't you go to the place where we were raised?" Asked a question and immediately thought that I did it in vain. "I guess I'm not ready to go back there yet." Okay, let's go." Liam gave Vanessa some money to buy some candy or kids. "Thank you." She kissed him. When the girl was already there, she smiled at those who had just been taken for a walk. "Hi." She entered the lot and sat down in front of one of the boys. "Hello." Looked at the kindergarten teacher because he was afraid of being scolded. "Don't be afraid." She took it, handed him a candy on a stick. "Thank you." He grabbed the candy and ran to the others. "Why are you guys doing this?" The teacher came over. "Oh my God, Vanessa, I didn't recognize you. I just came to visit you again." She gave me some candy for the other kids. "Thank you. You're so kind." The woman looked at her. "Can I stay here with you?" The girl asked. "Yes, of course." When the walk was over, she was invited to have tea. "Yes, I will go a little about the other," appeared Vanessa. They entered the building, went up to the second floor. "Let's go to the organization room." The teacher called her. "Aha." The teacher hurried after her. Vika had never been here before. Usually she walked with children in the yard or walked them to the group. And now on the desk of one of the specialists, the girl saw a business card of the very Michael about whom she wanted to know so much. "And this is our sponsor," strangely said the employee. "Why so do you know?" "He helps us strangely." She couldn't say anything else because she didn't know. It turns out he's a benefactor. Vanessa thought that was good for her. "Yeah, he's got a couple of clinics he sponsors." The kindergarten teacher poured tea. Which ones were the girl more interested in? "One, I think. The psychiatric one." "I don't know, thanks." Something stirred in Vanessa's soul. She realized she could get to this man, but she didn't know how. She didn't want any more tea now. She drank it so as not to offend the man who, if invited. The girl was in a hurry to get home and needed to think things over. Liam was not home yet. She was waiting for him to consult. He arrived only in the evening and saw the girl sitting in the kitchen looking out the window. "Hi." He walked over to her. "And the fire. Can you believe it?" She told him what she had found out today about Michael. "Wow. I need a plan. And I think I already have one. Will you tell me if Liam's interested?" "Yeah. We need to break up, separate." Vanessa was looking at a young man. "What are you going to do?" This old man didn't understand the guy. "No," she was sitting next to him. "After I found out that he sponsors a budget institution in our city, I decided to get there under any pretext. There's no way to get into an orphanage. I don't fit in as a pupil. Even if I did, it's not an option." She started smiling, probably imagining it all. "So you want to go to a mental institution?" Liam concluded. "Exactly. And for that, we need to break up. And I don't see what the point is. What's the easiest way to get there? I don't know. Throw it out of the window, Liam suggested. Well, that's exactly it. She got to her feet again and started to run circles around the kitchen. Are you really crazy about this, Michael? He was shocked at what his girlfriend was about to do. Look, I'll do it carefully. You realize you'll have a record of you doing it and being there. I realize that. But if it works out, I'll get it cleaned up afterward. She looked at the couples. Everything had to be carefully planned before putting her plan into action. Vanessa believed that she would succeed. She planned to get into a mental hospital. By the way, her patient, and when the sponsor arrives, that's where she catches him. The girl thought that if he wouldn't talk to a normal person, he'd probably talk to a hospital client for sure. Go away and don't come back, she yelled at Liam at home. What are you telling me to do? I know what to do myself. He spoke loudly back at her. This scandal was specially made for the neighbors, so that no one would have suspicions that the family, which had lived for a very long time in good relations, could now act like this. What are you doing there? Shouted she again to him. Bag packing, he shouted back. And hurry up. She opened the door, and still on the landing continued the scandal. After Liam left the door, she purposely did not close it. Vanessa went to the bathroom, took a blade, and made a small cut on her hand near her wrist. What are you doing? She ran back into the apartment. Go away. Get away from me. Pushed at him. The guy called an ambulance. All the neighbors who heard and saw everything that was going on had already gathered. She needs to be hospitalized right away, said Vanessa, the EMT. They put her in the car, took her to the nearest hospital, since the damage was minor. Doctors looked, treated, interrupted. That's where the law enforcement officer came in. So we need to write up a report. Sat across from her. Okay, I'll do it. She made a guilty face. Do you confirm that you self-injured yourself? I'm asking you a question. Yes, I do. You understand that we must now forcibly take you to a psychiatrist. The sane man said. Yes, of course I understand. She cried. And what was there to cry now, if everything had already happened? Another doctor entered the room she was in. He looked at Vanessa and asked what had happened. You see, I was brought up in an orphanage, and so was my boyfriend. We started living together. Everything was fine. And now he found someone else and left me all this time. She was crying her eyes out. Calm down. He sat down next to her and took her hand. How can I calm down here if I love him so much? She tilted her head. So today I'm warning you that if this happens again, we'll have to take you to the clinic because you're mentally disturbed. Do you need help? The doctor said, got up and left the room. Vanessa stayed there for a few more minutes, then got up and left, called a cab, and went home. She dialed Liam's number. He was waiting for the call. Husband, what? He asked me. Nothing worked out this time. Just a simple warning. What are you going to do now? Nothing, to try again. She was surprised he was asking her that. You're the pushy one. He was amused. A month or so passed. The young people never moved in together because they didn't need the neighbors to see them together. Vanessa was alone. That day she went to the neighbor's house on purpose. Hello, Miranda, she said to her when she opened the door. Hi. Come in, honey. I heard their last scandal. No, I just came to ask you if you had any valerian or Pasternak to calm me down. She was talking in a panicked voice. Yes, of course. Now the woman fussed. She ran to the kitchen to fetch the medicine. Vanessa knew that if she questioned the neighbors, Miranda would definitely confirm that she had taken it from her. Thank you very much. Vanessa walked back to her apartment. She left the door slightly open because she knew that the neighbor was very nosy and she would definitely come in to check what had happened to her. This time, Vanessa took some pills. Yes, she knew that if she drank enough of them, it could really lead to some sort of dire condition. But the girl had it all planned out. She emptied the box, destroyed everything, left only a few pieces so that if she was analyzed, It would definitely be confirmed that she drank these pills. The girl lay down on the couch and quickly watched the dream. It didn't take long for Miranda to arrive. She opened the door of her apartment ajar, looked to see that the neighbors' doors were not closed. Vanessa walked there, but no one answered her. The woman entered the apartment, saw her young neighbor lying on the couch. Her arm was thrown aside, and a bottle of pills was lying on the floor. My God, what have you done to yourself? For reading, she urgently picked up the phone and called an ambulance. Vanessa never regained consciousness. They took her to the ward. She woke up already in the ward where I'd spoken to her. She came in immediately. The doctors started questioning her. Why did she do it again? I can't live without him, she screamed. This time the same doctor who was there the first time came to see her. His name was Benjamin. And this is you again. Sorry, didn't get it. Eyes down. Now I warned you. I never joke. So now we're packing everything up, and you're moving to a completely different clinic. Maybe you shouldn't, she resisted. What do you mean, don't? Look at you. You have a real mental disorder. You need professional help. After saying that, Benjamin left the room. He said that he would wait for Vanessa outside in the car. The girl did feel a little uncomfortable, but on the other hand, she was glad that she had succeeded, and she wanted to be in this clinic, and she would be there. The other thing was that Vanessa didn't think about the consequences, even though Liam had warned her, but now she had a completely different goal in mind. Vanessa was brought in and placed in a room. Everything was exactly the same here as in a normal clinic. If you didn't know where you were, she knew she wouldn't be put on any tranquilizers or any other poison pills. And she was sedated. She went to counseling with a therapist and a psychologist. There was nothing wrong with that. How are you doing? Benjamin came to see her. Better, she said. Well, if you want, you can come out for a walk in our yard. Just promise me you won't do anything stupid. That would be wonderful. Vanessa was glad that she was not locked up here. As they walked down the corridor, she could see that the equipment here was very good. Everything is state-of-the-art. Tell me, do you have someone helping you? She was starting to get the man talking right. You know, like any institution, we have sponsors and kind people who do charity work. Like Michael, for example. She raised her eyes to him. How can you be so knowledgeable? Surprised the doctor. I was brought up in one of the orphanages where he also helped. Then it all makes sense. Yes, he's a very good man. He helps us. Benjamin stopped by, and he comes here himself to see what you're up to. Yes, at the end of every month he comes here. Vanessa realized that it was still 2 weeks away, but she didn't despair. She was only going towards her goal. And so when this time passed, she went out on purpose to see when Michael would arrive. The girl saw a man in an expensive suit walking along the road, but it was not the one she wanted. He was much younger. And today the ambassador's son said one of the women who was here turned to her. Vanessa, to you our sponsor, who launders money through the hospital, the son of his ambassador, spoke the woman. Well, Vanessa understood. A new plan was now maturing in her mind. She realized that if she couldn't do anything with Michael, she could make friends with this young man. The girl specifically calculated the time when he would walk back, and at the moment when the boy was walking down the path, she was there too. Oops, she tripped right in front of him. Girl, be careful, he told her and even helped her. He held Vanessa's hand. Thank you very much. She looked him straight in the eye. It's all right, take care. He looked at her too. When he put her hand down and walked towards the gate, she stood there looking after him. The young man looked back. What's your name? Vanessa asked me. The girl realized that he had turned his attention to her Ethan. He walked on and came out of the gate. She did not see what he did next. The next day, the girl didn't know what she was going to do here, but she wasn't going to leave. How are we doing? Benjamin came into her room. Yeah, you know, everything seems to be fine now. I can go home. Vanessa asked him. "No, my dear, you need to stay a little longer," he said. "What do you say?" "But I do feel much better already." She spent the whole day outside, and afterwards she just lay on the bed and looked at the ceiling. The next day, when she went out for a walk, she was very surprised to see Ethan again. "Hi," he said to her as they met eyes. "Hello," she hadn't expected to see him so soon. "You know, I don't know what it was that got me then. But that look you gave me, I still can't forget. That look told me about myself." The girl was jubilant. She never thought it could be so simple. They went to a bench and sat down on it. At that moment, Benjamin came up to them. "Ethan, hello there," he said, and looked at him, and Vanessa surprised. "Hello." He greeted him too. "What are you doing here? You weren't supposed to come today." You could see the man was nervous. "You know, it just so happened that I decided to come." The young man didn't know what to say. Vanessa looked at her slyly. "Doctor, it's all right." The girl turned to the guy. She was smiling, and even though she thought he was actually smiling, she was glad that she was really starting to get things going, and not for nothing had she come up with this plan. "Tell me, why are you here?" Ethan asked her. "You know, unrequited love," she said sadly and pretended to cry. "Can you elaborate on that? I wanted a guy to help this girl." "What kind of details? Don't you know what it's like? Sodding." "Okay, well, I have a rough idea." But he stopped talking. "What did you have like that?" A girl couldn't believe him. "You know, my dad runs everything I do. When I was in school, I only had to do what he said, and then go wherever he said. And I can't meet girls anywhere because I'm always with my dad at work or at home." He said it in such a way that Vanessa believed him. "Wow, I thought it was different for you rich people." She talked to him like an old friend. "Want to go for a walk?" she asked me. Yes, we could. They got up and walked along the alleys that were here in the courtyard. The young man was interested in Vanessa. He was ready to talk to her for hours. The next day, Ethan was in this courtyard again. Again, they walked and talked about everything. "I feel so good with you," the boy confessed to her. He looked at her so much that it was impossible not to believe those words. "I don't think there was any love at all. I just happened to have no one to support me in a difficult moment." She turned her face to him and walked back. "You know what I think?" "What?" "That you don't belong here at all. I can help you escape." He whispered that last part. Honestly, she couldn't believe it, that a millionaire's son would go out of his way to help some orphanage. Of course she did. "I agree," she also whispered. "Wait for me. We'll work something out tomorrow." He moved closer to her. Vanessa felt that he wanted to kiss her, but didn't dare. Ethan left and Vanessa went to her room. She saw Benjamin watching her from his window. The girl lay on her bed, thinking about what and how things would go from here. Now that Ethan and she had nothing to stop her from getting into Michael's family, she needed to think things through thoroughly. She needed a camera and a microphone. How hard could it be without Liam? But for now, she couldn't let him go to her. "Vanessa, can I see you?" Benjamin came to her room. "To be honest, you scared me. Tell me, what's all this circus for?" "What circus?" She made big, surprised eyes. "Why did you have to come to our hospital for Ethan?" We asked her directly. No, she didn't. It wasn't because of a young man. She did it all right. "I can see that you have a budding relationship, and I also know how his father feels about it." She sat down on the table. "Benjamin, if I tell you everything, how lazy of you to tell anyone," she asked him and put her hands together. "Tell me," he tilted his head. "I want to become a journalist," so she began to tell him everything in order. The girl saw the doctor's face change as she told him. "I don't understand why the pills had to be taken." He was shocked by the story. "Look, Rodino wants to make an escape tomorrow. He's probably going to make a deal with one of the staff. Don't bother him," she said. "God, I've never seen anything like this in a hospital before." And he got up and walked toward the door. "So what's your promise?" "I will. Only you'll come back later and tell me what you got." "Sure," the girl nodded. She stayed again. She lay alone and thought, if Ethan really wanted to kiss her, what would she do? Accept it, then betray Liam. Even good intentions wouldn't help. Vanessa thought for a long time and then just fell asleep. In the morning, she got up in a good mood, washed her face, got dressed, and went outside. Guess who? She felt someone's palms cover her eyes. "Oh, I don't even know. It must have been Benjamin talking," she smiled. "No, you didn't. I switched to jokes too. Like, hello." Vanessa turned to him. "So you ready to go?" He looked around so no one could hear them. True to form, she made a surprised face, put his finger to his lips. "How did you do it?" She spoke in a low voice. "I'll tell you later, if you need anything." "Did they go somewhere behind the building?" "No." She held his hand. "They climbed out through some hole one of my brothers showed them." "Thank you." The young man showed him the classroom. He did nothing but nod his head imperceptibly. "Where are we going now?" asked the girl. "To my place." Without hesitation, answered Well. Vanessa was jubilant. She had achieved what she wanted. "I need to call and warn my brother," she asked. "He has a phone." "Of course, it's near Kiev." "I'll step back." Vanessa looked at Ethan. "And you should have told Liam to get everything ready." Of course, he was fine with this young man. Vanessa dialed a number. When she was answered, she told him where to go and what to bring. She told him to get everything ready and to wait for her outside one of the stores. Liam understood everything, said he would. "Thank you." Gave it to Vanessa, Ethan's phone. But everyone went. He was ready for anything. "What if they look for me just in case?" she asked. "Don't worry about that. We'll figure it out." The guy was confident. "Okay, let's go to the store. My brother will bring me a bag of stuff. And my phone." She asked for one more thing. "Okay, whatever you say." They drove off, and after a while they were at the place. Vanessa got out. She acquired Liam at that moment, managed to whisper in his ear that everything would be fine. She would explain everything to him later, picked up her bag, and got back into the car. Now they were on their way to the house of the one the girl had been after for so long. Of course she was worried. What if Michael found out? But it was too late to back out now. "Come in." He opened the door for her. They entered the big house, which was very beautiful. "I thought you lived in the city, in an apartment." "Yes, we have a place there too, but we spend most of our time here." The young man didn't hide anything from her. A woman came down from the second floor. She looked young. "Good afternoon." She stopped. "Mom, meet Vanessa, my girlfriend," her son said with a smile. "Nice to meet you." The woman showed no emotion, but Vanessa assumed that it was not the kind of party parents wanted to see next to their son. "And this is Lisa." The young man smiled. "Nice to meet you too." The girl stood there. "And what did you bring and get acquainted? Or are you going to start living together right away?" "How arrogant?" asked the woman. But the mother said to the parents, as if to reproach the woman in something. "Come alone in the evening will come father. We'll sort it out," she said. Turned around and went. The young people passed in one of the rooms, which was guarded with Ethan. The young men walked to one of the rooms, which turned out to be Ethan's. There he showed her where she could put her things. "Downstairs is the kitchen there, Natasha, from whom you can always ask for something," he told the guests. "I'm uncomfortable," she said in response. "It's okay. I hope my father will understand." Sitting down on the bed, she said sadly, "There's no need to be upset." Vanessa sat next to him. The girl realized that if the guy had not dated anyone before today, now it was important to him what his father would say. Immediately other thoughts came to mind. What if he decided to take revenge on his parents? "They wouldn't let me date anyone. Then I'll be with her." She smirked. "What are you doing?" He turned to her. "You do realize that you and I are from different social strata. And even if you're not allowed to date me, I won't take offense." It was as if she was preparing him for the fact that sooner or later they would have to break up. What are you talking about? I fell in love with you at first sight. You realized there was no one young. And here's the first girl who reciprocated. It's like she talked him into it. All right, we'll see. He shut up. In the evening, when the head of the family came home, everyone began to gather around the table to have dinner. Maybe I shouldn't go, Vanessa asked, because she was afraid of being recognized. No, we need to introduce you to Daddy. Ethan held out his hand to her. Okay. Vanessa took her purse, which had a small camera in it, and they went downstairs. Both parents were already sitting at the table. They were waiting for the son and the girl to come downstairs. Apparently, the mother had already told her husband about who was now living in their house, because all he could do was stare at the stairs when the young ones would already show up. Hello, everyone. Ethan was cheerful. He introduced Vanessa to his father. He looked at her and didn't recognize her. Hello, the girl nodded. At the table, everyone was silent. Stood for a while when it was over. Ethan asked Vanessa to take a little walk. When you get back, come into my office, the boy's father said sternly. Okay, he answered him, and they went outside. At that moment, Ethan exhaled that it was hard to live with such an influential parent. She guessed. You have no idea how much he took her hand. And they walked forward. Tell me something, the girl asked him. The camera in the microphone from now on was always on. You know, we used to live a normal life. My father worked a simple job, brought a salary, but it wasn't enough for him. He had to work his way up. He was always studying, and then he started to make money. And the more money he had, the angrier he got, Ethan recalled. And his mother, she was always quiet and did whatever his father said. When we moved into this house, something happened to her too. Now we're high society. Everyone else is an indentured servant. He stopped talking. Maybe you haven't gotten to that point, the girl suggested. I don't think I will. Anna turned around to walk back toward the house. Then he began to remember how he studied in a regular school, that he and his friends were walking in the yard, playing different games. At that, the guy was smiling. It was obvious that he was happy in those moments. Vika felt sorry for him, because she realized that she would have to leave him, no matter how much he didn't want to. Will you sleep here, or can I make my own bed in the guest room? He asked her. If you can, she asked nicely. While she called, it was already done. A woman looked in and called out to her to show her the room. At that moment, Ethan was coming down to his father's study. What did you want? Sat down on the desk. What are you doing? Took a break from his papers and raised his head, the man. What didn't the man understand? Where did you pick it up? Michael wasn't saying much. Why, you can do what you want, and I can't. The son was ready to do anything to defend Vanessa. She's a beggar. You want to show how honorable you are. Dad, don't say that. What if it's true? The man got up from his seat. I love her. The young man turned away from the window. What? How long have you two known each other? 2 days. Michael opened the bar and took a bottle out of there. A little more than that, the son answered. Okay, I'm not gonna push you, but how do you play it? Get her out of here. Don't get married. I realize you're doing all this, not out of spite. Well, then you're only hurting yourself. He poured himself a drink of the dark liquid. I can go now, asked the radio. Yes, nodded the one. The young man went back to his room. It was empty. Mentally wished Vanessa a good night, went to bed. He began to think about what they would do tomorrow morning. Besides them, there was no one else in the house. His mother had gone shopping and his father had gone to work. Ethan came to get Vanessa to call her for breakfast. What are we going to do? She asked him at the table. I don't know what you want. The boy was ready to fulfill her every wish. Do you have any books or anything interesting in the house? She asked. Books? The young man was surprised. What was there to be surprised about? She couldn't understand. Now, after breakfast, I'll show you. He began to eat. At that moment, both of them were silent for a while. When they had finished, He stood up and called Vanessa to follow him to the table. "I'm not allowed to come here while the master is away, of course, and no one else." But he put his finger to his lips. They entered her father's study, and Vanessa's breath even cleared with excitement. She hadn't realized she could get to where the information could be so quickly. "What's in here?" She played dumb and asked to show you the books too. "The library is just in the study." He showed her the high shelves. Wow! The girl wasn't pretending now. She was really surprised. "No one's in the house yet. We can take a look." Ethan walked over to the shelves. "Aren't you curious yourself?" She wasn't really surprised. He didn't pretend to be. "Okay, I'll pick something out quickly, and we'll go to the room." She began to look at what is here, "But I'll go to get some fresh air and see that no one comes." Out came the guy from the study. Vanessa rushed over to the computer. Sure, it was password protected, but there were a bunch of papers on the desk. She started going through them, taking pictures of some things. What she read in the 2 documents just shocked her. She realized that she hadn't set all this up for nothing. It really was a hot report. Of course, if it suddenly worked out, she said aloud and went back to the regiment. After that incident, every day when no one was home, Vanessa was able to walk into the office unhindered. She even tried to figure out the password on the computer, but she couldn't do it. She already had some information, but it wasn't enough. "Let's go to dinner." They had been living here in this house for over a month. Vanessa now became Vanessa and followed the young man. They were all sitting together at the table again. Vanessa was getting used to it by now. After dinner, as on other evenings, the couple walked outside. They seemed to be holding hands and walking down the path. What did he turn to her? "Wouldn't you like to live a normal life without all those parental helpers and the rest of the benefits?" She asked him. "What would you like to offer?" "Let's go to my place. Let's try living together there. Let's see how fast it goes," she said before he could interrupt her. "What is there to try?" "Really?" Vanessa didn't expect him to agree. "Sure. Why not? I've been wanting to move out of here for a long time." Ethan also thought about the fact that in Vanessa's apartment, the 2 of them would be alone in her territory, and they might be able to bond. Today he didn't say anything to his parents because he knew there would be a scandal. His father never spoke to him again after that conversation they had in the study, only on business. In the morning, he packed the things he needed to take with him. They went downstairs. "Where are you going?" Lisa was on the 1st floor. "Mom, I want to live on my own. See what I can make of it." As if guilty, said the young man. "What do you mean you're not happy with us?" The woman turned away. "But why do you immediately perceive everything so? You will not live forever." He approached his mother and circled her. "What will the father say to that?" She's acquired him too. "We'll come and tell you everything in a couple of weeks," Ethan promised. "Okay, do what you want." But she fell silent and looked at Vanessa until she started asking her boyfriend what she wanted to say. Next, "Goodbye." The girl turned to her. They walked out of the house and drove to where Vanessa lived. "This is where I live." A girl opened the door of her apartment. "Are you cozy?" They entered the room. "Thank you," smiled the girl. She was glad to be back home. All day the young people were busy doing a little cleaning. During the time the girl was not here, things got very watered down. Vanessa asked Vanessa to the store. After everything, they needed to cook something, and the refrigerator was empty. "Yes," nodded Rode. He felt like he and Vanessa had a family now. Together they left the house, went grocery shopping, went back in. At home in the kitchen, they were together too. "I feel so good with you," Ethan admitted. "You could have gotten yourself some girl." She laughed. They sat down at the table and ate dinner. "You're such a good cook," said the young man. "Oh, don't exaggerate." Blushing, when the dishes were washed and the couple settled in the room in front of the TV, there was a knock at the door. Someone looked at it. A guy. "Well, maybe it's the angry dad coming to get you," she joked. "You think he couldn't believe it?" The girl went to open the door. Miranda stood on the doorstep. "Hello." Vanessa looked at her and didn't realize she could be here too. Vanessa said, "Hi. How are you doing?" She came into the apartment. "I'm fine." Tried to keep her out of the hallway. "Girl." "Hello, neighbor." It didn't make any difference. She moved forward and saw a young man. "Good evening." He turned to her. "What about Liam?" Miranda asked the question. Tisha gestured to her. That's where the girl started pushing the woman back towards the door. "And you two broke up." Understood the neighbor. "It's all in the past. I'm doing fine, so you don't have to worry about me anymore." Vanessa opened the door, showing the guest that it was time to leave. "Okay, have a nice day." She walked out onto the landing. "Who was that?" Asked after the woman had left the neighbor who always pokes her nose in her own business. Vanessa thought to herself that it had once played into her hands. "Who's Liam?" he asked. "By the way, is he the guy who got me where you met me?" Vanessa said sadly. And she was really sad because she hadn't seen or called the guy in weeks. "Now I see. I'm sorry." He wanted to hug the girl, but she somehow automatically deflected. "That's okay." She realized she made the wrong gesture. "Tell me about yourself. You didn't tell me enough the other day. I want to know everything." He turned the conversation around. "You know, my life was never as sweet as yours. I had a place to go after the orphanage. This apartment was left to my parents. But the other kids didn't. A lot of them lived here for a while. And she cleaned mine up, but it was time to get the guy to talk." "Yeah," she shook her head. "Everybody gets an apartment, but some of them are still waiting for it to this day." And nothing. She glanced at Ethan, but he was staring thoughtfully in front of him. Vanessa waited for him to snap and start talking about his parents. She was now almost 100% sure that he was doing something dishonest. For example, an acquaintance of mine was supposed to get an apartment, but it didn't work out. He was offered compensation, but it was so small that he couldn't buy anything with it. At least in this town. She kept pushing her line. "Why are you telling me all this?" The young man started to get nervous. Just complaining about life. Because some people get everything and some people get nothing. She turned up the sound on the TV and turned her back to him. "You know how mean I feel sometimes." He took the remote from her hands, turned the sound down again, and so it began. Vanessa thought to herself. She could feel the guy was about to crack. "I'm sorry." Liam moved closer to the girl, hugged her, and kissed her neck. At this point, she was only asking mentally for Liam's forgiveness. "What allows you to do this? What was it that you needed to do? What are you apologizing for?" Its life didn't turn. It turned to him. "I could tell you such things. Only scary," whispered in my ear. "You killed someone." She turned to face him and made big eyes. "No, probably made it worse. Ethan was very sad to tell me." She was determined to listen. "But as I told you, my father used to be a simple administrative worker. He was doing something, always wanting more money. At one point, he was transferred to the housing policy department. So I was just an ordinary person, doing whatever I needed to do. And then it started." He stopped talking at the most interesting point. "So what started?" Interested, she looked at him and still pretended not to understand anything. But he had been put in charge of this department. At first, no one suspected anything. My mother and I were happy when my father started earning more and bringing home an income. Then he started building a house. The boy fell silent again, looking at Vanessa as if wondering whether to continue or not. And well, since my father knew how to do it all, he started working out different schemes. And when I finished my education, took me in. Ethan smiled as he remembered that moment. He was really enjoying himself then. And of course, all the errands on the matter were addressed to you. As if she had guessed. Yes, but I didn't know anything at the time. My father said that it was necessary to buy housing for people from boarding schools or orphanages. I'd go and make arrangements. It was some communal houses, old houses. At that moment I thought that since there was nothing else, at least that's how he nudged the blue ones, and shook his head. It turns out that the apartments were not the ones that were actually allocated, Vanessa added. Yes, they were. I found that out after a while. My father could sell the housing that was allocated to a person and offer him compensation that was many times less than the amount he received. Since the documents were signed, most of the time young people don't read anything, and they would not be able to prove anything. And many simply did not apply anywhere. Well, they gave. What else can they do now? The girl saw that it was really hard for the guy to talk about it. And then she asked me one more question. When I told my father that I didn't want to do it, he didn't understand me. He had several companies that were registered to relatives, so he signed one over to me and put me to work there. I was kind of his assistant now. Ethan was so angry he wasn't hiding anything from her anymore. Vanessa sat back. She realized that this whole conversation was being recorded. She couldn't believe she'd done it. Don't be upset. She hugged him now. Yeah, it's okay. He rested his head on her shoulder. Why, if you were against it? You didn't go anywhere. Wasn't interesting. But it's my father. He lifted his head and looked into her eyes. More. They didn't speak on the subject that evening. Vanessa had sorted Ivan out. They went to bed. In the morning, she got up and made breakfast and called Ethan over. They ate and the girl started to pack. Where are you going? Asked the young man. I have some business to attend to. She stood already in the hallway. Maybe I asked with you. No, I'll be quick. She left the apartment and immediately called Liam. Hi. I missed you so much. He picked up right away. It's okay. I'll meet you soon, and I think I've got it all worked out, she replied. They exchanged a few words and Vanessa hung up the phone. She was on her way to the police station to talk to the investigator. The officer on duty asked for her ID, walked her to her office. Hello. She saw a solid man in uniform sitting behind a desk. Sit down, he showed her the table. Vanessa looked at the sign where the surname, first name, and patronymic of the employee were written. Rick raised her eyes to him. I have a case for you regarding the deception of children from orphanages. He sighed again. Do you have a statement too? Was he waiting for her to hand it to him or ask for paper and ask what to write? No, she shook her head. Then what? He was looking surprised now. You see, I want to become a famous journalist. She started her song again. What's that got to do with me? Look, I come from an orphanage myself. I have a lot of friends. And when I realized my friends were being cheated, I started my own investigation. So she turned on the tapes and showed him the pictures she'd taken in Michael's office. Who are you? He listened to the whole thing, and he was stunned by what this girl had done. So who is going after her target? When does it end? I think this is going to be the hot report. Vanessa smiled. So will you be able to talk to this man directly? I think so. We'll be going to their place for dinner soon. Dedicated her plans to Rick. Okay. Cell phone rings. Here's my phone number. Call me when you get this. And if he confesses to everything, then we'll take him hot, he said and handed over his business card. Thank you. Happy she went home. Ethan stayed at home like that. When the girl came in, she offered to take a little walk. She agreed. After that, a week passed. Vanessa kept wanting to talk to the young man, and which he promised to his parents, but did not know where to start. So she called her father. She asked him. No, they were at home, and that he wouldn't tell you anything, that you've been out of work for so long. She didn't know what else to say. I don't know, he shrugged. Look, do you remember when you promised your mother we'd come over for dinner? She reminded him. Yeah, it seemed like a good time to do it. You think he wasn't sure? What are we gonna tell them about our relationship? That way your daddy will see that you can live a normal life without a housekeeper. Vanessa laughed, so as not to arouse suspicion. Okay, I'll call you right now. He took the phone and went to the kitchen. And Vanessa turned all out loud. What did they tell you? She asked when he was done talking. My parents are expecting us at their place tonight. Ethan was happy with the way things were going in his life. He had no idea what was going on in Vanessa's head. That's great. She got up and walked over to her closet to pick out the outfit she would wear tonight. In the evening, the girl was ready. She called Rick, giving him a heads up on everything. He promised to have us there by the appointed time. So, shall we go? Ethan, I was waiting out front. Yeah, I'm ready. She was all ready. They were back at that beautiful house. They went in, greeted the mother and father. Come to the table, said the not-so-good-natured mother. As everyone sat down and began to eat, Michael looked at his son. He had many questions for him. So, how is life in poverty? He asked and looked out the window. Dad, why are you doing this? Ethan trespassed on the river. It's okay, she said. What's everything here for you? You said no. You don't go to work. You quit everything. The man stopped chewing. Of course, it's better to rip off this poverty than to live a private life. Vanessa put in a word. What are you choking on, Michael? What have you gotten wrong? Not a modest girl at all. How dare you talk to me like that? A man jumped up from the table. Darling, calm down. His wife tried to calm him down. Who are you in the whole world, Michael, on the girl? That one's insides shook. I am just a girl from the orphanage, who may have been just as deceived by you as many others, she said, overcoming the excitement. At that moment, the man grabbed his head and fled to his office. But not a few minutes later, he came back again. Darling, go to your room. The husband turned to his wife. Why do I want to hear this? She didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't make myself clear, waiting for her to get up and leave the room. Okay, I'm leaving. Lisa was not happy. Now I'll tell you, pointing a finger at the river, to leave too. She didn't expect anyone to stand up for her, like Ethan. No, I want to know where you got all this from, what you're accusing me of. He set the table next to hers and looked her straight in the face. Why are you so nervous if you're not guilty of anything? She was still trying to suppress her inner excitement. It's not every time you find yourself in such close proximity to a powerful person. I ask you again, from where? Shouted. And why are you meeting in different diners on the outskirts of the city with young men? As it turns out later, they're all orphans. She exhibited her first trump card. I see. Maybe you already confessed to stealing from underprivileged children. She asked openly. Listen to the little kids. If I wanted to, I could wipe you out. You'd be a piece of shit. Who are you going to fight? He's got a normal smile on his face now. All right, do whatever you want to punish you. She threw a finger up. You know how hard it is to live on one paycheck. And if an opportunity like this comes up, why not take it? Who gets fostered there? Those who were abandoned. What are their genes? What I gave them is enough. You could tell the man was relaxed and was bragging about what he was doing. What makes you think that? No one refused me. The girl looked at him. These are isolated cases. That's why you have apartments, he said as if he regretted it. So, you're confessing to cheating the kids. She asked him that question again. Vanessa, why would you do that? Ethan finally spoke up. All this time, he had been sitting there thinking he had told her everything. You're good too. She turned to him. What do you want from us? Yes, I admit I did all that. But you know what people say, if you want to live, you got to keep on keeping on. That's what I was doing. Until you showed up. He stopped talking and wagged his index finger at her. She didn't understand that gesture. Oh, I'll remember you. You're the pushy girl who wanted to talk to me. Narrowed their eyes. But that was enough. The girl pressed the call button on her phone. What are you doing? Just before the man could say anything, police officers entered the house. Michael, are you under arrest? Calmly approached him Rick, and others were already handcuffing him and Ethan. How could you do that? The boy looked at her the same way you did. She got up from her chair. Lisa came out to the noise. What's going on here? I don't understand. She did. Vanessa then handed over all the photo, audio, and video recordings to Rick. It was all clear. No one would have guessed. He looked at the young girl who'd pulled it all off. "Look, I'll have one favor to ask of you at the end," Vanessa asked him that he was willing to listen to. "I hurt myself on purpose to get into a mental institution. Can we make sure that this tape doesn't appear anywhere?" The girl asked the man. "Okay, we'll figure it out," he promised her. After that, Vanessa returned home. She called Liam, told him he could come back. Hey, he was at her place in half an hour. "God, how did I miss you?" They hugged. So, he wanted details. The girl told him everything. She didn't even hide the fact that he had kissed her. It was obvious that the guy didn't like to hear it, but he realized it was necessary for his body. "So, what are you going to do?" asked. "Well, the case is going to trial, nothing. Not until after the trial's over. And this story is over. I'll be able to submit this report somewhere," she said. "I'm proud of you. She's rotten." After that, Vanessa was often called in for questioning. She could only tell what she saw on it, and that was on the record. Liam, on the other hand, could say more about how he was compensated. With all this material, a few episodes were proven, but even that was enough to stand up. The trial is underway. Was Liam Vanessa present when the trial was held? Before that, Rick told the girl that Michael did everything he could to get away with it. He offered money, set up his son, because he had made those contracts, but nothing could help him, because he had confessed to everything. Vanessa would never forget the way Ethan looked at her as they were in court. She knew she'd used the guy, but he knew everything too, but he never admitted anything to anyone. Both father and son were accused of guilt. Michael got 15 years with forfeiture. Ethan as an accomplice, 9. That's it. The young men walked out of the courthouse. "Yes, now with Rick's permission, I can provide materials at the studio," the girl said cheerfully. "Will you take me with you?" asked Liam cheerfully. Of course, Vanessa was happy. The next day in the morning, the girl was so worried. She called the very editor she had met a few years ago at a seminar. "Hello, probably not. You don't know me otherwise. But we met at a journalism seminar. I said I wanted to be a reporter or an interviewer, and you said you wanted to be a hot reporter. Well, I've got it." She was talking, and Vanessa had a lump in her throat. He said her name, which surprised the girl. "Yes, I'm surprised you remembered me." She didn't hide her surprise. "I thought you were interesting then." He dictated to her the address where she could come, but everyone went. "Now my fate will be decided," she said to her young man when they were where she was invited. First, Vanessa told her everything and then showed her. "Well, you're a piece of work. I can't believe it. All that girl did all by herself. Thank you." Those words were better for her than any compliment. "And what do you think I can do with this?" she asked modestly. "I'm going to make one call now." He picked up the phone and dialed a number. While the men talked, Vanessa sat silent. Her hands were in her pockets. She made her fingers crossed. "Well, I congratulate you. You are being called to a very popular channel right now with this material," he told the girl. "And how do I thank you?" she asked. "For what?" "For being so smart and doing all this." He handed her the flash drive. Now the couple was on their way to where they were waiting. Vanessa couldn't believe it. It was like it wasn't real. She handed over the material. She was told she'd get a call back when she'd seen it. A week later, the phone rang. "Hello." She picked up after a short conversation in which Liam could see, by the look on Vanessa's face, that everything was fine. She hung up and just started bouncing around. The guy remembered the moment he'd agreed to live at her place. She had done the exact same thing. Take what? Taken. She clapped her hands together. "This calls for a celebration. That's why I'm inviting you to the best restaurant." She hugged my favorite. "Wait a minute. I was told that the report was already on TV." She opened the internet. When the couple found that very clip and saw her name under it, and Liam also pointed her to the comments below it, the whole town was talking about it. Everyone was shocked that a simple girl could spin such a thing. She was getting calls, inquiring and asking for help. But Vanessa just smiled. Now you are popular. I don't even know how to go out with you, a young man told her. Oh, come on. She's flirting with him. They were sitting in a restaurant. On the table were many different years. Liam took a sparkling wine, poured it into a glass. Beloved, I congratulate you. He raised the first toast. Thank you. She was happy for both herself and them. Anyway, they took a sip each, both smiling. It was obvious that the young people loved each other. Vanessa Liam got up from the table. Yes, I'm listening to you. At that moment, slow music started playing. She thought he wanted to ask her to dance. You will be my wife. Only she wanted to get up from her seat when Liam handed her the ring. My God, of course I will. She took the jewelry and kissed it. But now, I'm really happy. They went dancing. What a nice evening. Were they going home? No, wrong. A wonderful evening, like him and me. So be it. It doesn't matter. She was proud of herself. When do we go to apply? Asked the young man. Now, as soon as I get a job. We'll do it right away, she said. Vanessa was eager to start working. When she first came to the collective, everyone welcomed her as if they had known you before, heard about you. You're cool, they said, colleagues, thank you. It flattered the girl. Is it true you've been taking pills? One of the young men came up to her. Yes, but it's not so simple there. She laughed. You have to be so eager to get to work. Wondered. You know, they probably would have gotten you in without that. Other people told her. All right. There was 100% of us with this material that I would pass, the girl replied. After she got used to the collective, as promised, they went with Liam to the registry office. Young people filed an application, and soon they were to have a wedding. I love you, I hugged you, and I am a young man. Thank you for always being there for me and understanding me. She kissed him. All friends and colleagues were invited to the celebration. The celebration was held in a restaurant. It was fun. Everyone congratulated, wished happiness. It made me feel so warm. I guess it's time to go home, Vanessa Liam said, when it was too late. What do you say? He couldn't refuse her. At home, the couple had already changed their clothes and got into bed. They were so tired they didn't feel like they'd never thought you were my destiny. And I always knew it. She turned back to him. In the morning, they were awakened by a knock on the door. Someone had gotten out of bed so early, young man, and went to open it. Standing on the threshold was Miranda Liam. She stared at him. Who did you want to see? He smiled. You're doing well. Did the woman ask the question? Yes, he laughed and wondered what was going through the woman's mind right now. Saw Vanessa's report. Came to congratulate her, Miranda said. You know, we had a wedding yesterday. We're really tired. She's still asleep. Wouldn't let her roommate in the apartment. Okay, I'll come back later. She went to her apartment. Who was that? The neighbor. He told her how surprised she was to see him. They laughed together. And so Vanessa began to work. She was often sent on business trips, which the girl gladly went. All her reports were very interesting and lively. The management praised her work. Once the girl came home from work, checked the mailbox, found a letter there, put it in her pocket, and went upstairs. Liam was not there yet, so Vanessa made herself some tea. She sat down in the kitchen and printed out the envelope Ethan had written to her. Hello, dear Vanessa. I guess this is a farewell letter, because it's unbearable here. I want to apologize to you for everything I've done in my life. I realize that you didn't do it because you are angry, because you are fair. I don't hold a grudge against you either. Goodbye. And you know that I've grown to love you for real kisses. 4. Vanessa heard on Liam that she wiped away a tear. Screaming, can't you hear me? I think something's happened. He came over. He looked at the sheet in his hands. Ethan wrote. She handed over the letters. Liam quickly ran his eyes over them. What does he think? That you're going to take pity on him now? He put the envelope on the table. Okay, let's not. We've forgotten. She got up from the table. Why are you crying? He wiped another tear that rolled down his cheek. It's true. It's not the kid's fault. If it wasn't for his father, he wouldn't be where he is now, the girl said. Let's forget about it. He held his wife close to him. Okay. They stood like that for a while, and then the girl went to cook. Already the next day light and hurried to work. She ran into her office, took her desk. Hi. Did you already know a coworker ran in on her? No. What happened? Did Vanessa think she missed something important? A guy in prison hanged himself. Made those big eyes. So that's what he meant by saying it was his last letter, the girl said out loud. What did he write to you? Surprised by the interlocutor. Yes, one farewell letter. He said he loved me for real. Vanessa said quietly. She took out her phone and called Liam to tell him the news.